lot of people may have heard of the growing fan base surrounding a cartoon show called My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. Several documentaries have been made explaining just who the fans are and what sets them apart from the fandoms of other prominent pop culture followings. I've decided to make this documentary to attempt to express some of the aspects of this show that I feel need to be shared. While nearly every Brony has a story to tell of how the show has impacted their lives, there are some whose lives have been impacted so drastically it's nothing short of miraculous. Here are several of the individuals that I had the pleasure of speaking to about the impact of this show on their own personal lives.
I'm known as Pony Toast.
Yeah, it's.
And I'm a podcaster, freelance writer, and voice actor.
My name is Jared Manorino. I go in the show by the name Barry on Sweep. Well, in the show, well, in the fandom.
Morning. Hello. My name is M.A. Larson. I'm a writer on My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. I wrote on seasons 1, 2, and 3, and 5, and story edited the first half of season 5.
Hi, I'm Animated James. I'm a cartoonist on the internet.
Hello, I am James Michaels, but known in the fandom as MD Quill.
These individuals are going to help me express and address some of the very powerful positive messages found in this unassuming children's show. Let's start with a bit of information about the core values exalted in My Little Pony. First off, you have the elements of harmony, which are represented by each of one of the main characters. Those values are honesty, loyalty, kindness, generosity, laughter, and last of all, magic. Now, each of these elements of harmony are things we can apply to our daily lives, even magic. There's a certain, almost sappy kind of magic that comes from enjoying the company and benefits of a true friendship. Let's see what Barian has to say about that kind of magic.
And people make fun of the title. People say, oh, it's the magic of friendship. People make fun of the title. But it is so, in a way, it's so true. There is magic in friendship, and I don't mean like, I grab my magic wand and go Alakazam, or, it's not like that. It's not like, it's not supernatural. Get in here and have some fun. It is magic what can happen at these things. Now you come to a con, and if you think like, oh, people are just walking around, they're not really doing anything. You're not getting the spirit of it, because you go to these panels, you go to talk to the people, and you hang out with people, you make new friends, and magic happens. And the real magic of it is you learn that if you are a better person to other people, and then they become comfortable with that, and they're a better person to you. This might sound cheesy, but we can make a better world.
Sounds like some pretty powerful magic to me. The magic to make a better world. That's magic I believe the world needs desperately. The show brings a spark of joy to people's lives that improves them greatly. This show brought a spark of optimism to me at a time in my life where the future appeared very dark, and greatly inspired me to look at the world in a more positive way. And it's done the same thing for many others.
Actually, the show itself, I believed, it really did change my life, because I first got into the show, again, I was on this forum. I actually was recently fired from a job, and I was in a severe, very bad depression, to the point I was getting those bad thoughts in your head. The ones that nobody wants anyone to think of. And the show itself, I was very cynical, which is why I want to watch it. I want to see why this is going on. I thought it was dumb. I want to see how stupid it could be. So I started watching it, and because the show, it basically gave me another spark of happiness and joy, something in a world which I thought didn't exist anymore. I thought things were just terrible. So it actually changed my life to the point now where before the show, I virtually gave up on art for about 1.5 years. And now I am slowly becoming a known artist. People are recognizing me, and I am loving everything right now. I am extremely optimistic to the future, and the show changed my life. The fandom itself is one of the best things that has ever happened to me. In fact, why would I be at a pony convention here at TrotCon if I didn't love this fandom so much? I've met so many great people. I've connected with people in the industry I want to get into. This thing here has jumped my life to a point where I can't believe how much everything has changed within the 4 or 5 years it's been going on. This is one of the greatest experiences, and the fandom is definitely the reason I'm still here. The show is good, but this fandom is the best part.
It's changed how I view. It's changed how I really view humanity as a whole, because this was totally unexpected for pretty much everybody, including me. So, it taught me to be more optimistic. Like, you have to be really optimistic to even consider to be a grown 20-year-old man and even consider watching a show called My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. So yeah, it's made me look at things in a completely different way. It's made me trust other people a lot more, and overall, it's just made me more optimistic.
It got me out of a really tough place that I was in. In 2009, beginning of 2009, my mother passed away, and so for most of 2009, I was very, very reclusive. I had all kinds of issues with my girlfriend at the time that ultimately never got fixed, and I didn't know where to go or what to do or where my life was going. I had just started school, college, and I felt lost, and I felt like everything that was good in my life was just draining away. And I got brought into the fandom just kind of more or less by mistake. And as much as I would say that I would have totally gotten into it, I don't know if I would have if I didn't have that hole to fill. But it filled a hole for me. It gave me something that I could do that filled my time, that took my mind off of things, and made me feel like I was contributing positively to people. That people wanted me around. And to me, there's no greater feeling than having someone tell me, "I'm glad you're here. I want you to be here." And for me, it really boosted my confidence. I was able to approach people and be social with them, people that I probably would have spoken to otherwise. I made friends with, and I'm connected with people on the other side of the country, on the other side of the world. And it's a reminder that no matter where you are, and no matter how far away your friends are, you can still be friends with people. And there's nothing wrong with saying that you're never going to meet that person in real life. And knowing that you can still reach out to them and say, "I'm having a day, you want to talk?" Or "Let's hang out and do something," and then you sit and watch videos together. Friendship is a very special kind of thing, and I've had to learn that. Growing up, I didn't have a lot of friends because I was really socially awkward, and I was really fat, and I didn't like myself, and I never really got to socialize with people. And I get the opportunity to do that now. And I get to do that with people that, like me, sometimes don't have a lot of socialization. And we can be ourselves and make mistakes and learn about the things that bring people together and connect people. And so for me, it's made my life so much better, because now I can walk into a room with people at work or at whatever events I'm going to, and I'm like, I can do this. I can be a person, I can contribute to this setting, and not feel like I'm going to screw up left and right.
There was no way to predict this. I've worked on a lot of shows before this that nobody watched. My mom didn't even watch. I didn't even watch. They would air, and I always called it writing into the void. Write an episode, send it off. Nobody's ever going to watch it. No big deal. Move on to the next one. I remember the first time I thought it was going to be something special was in the season 2 Writers Summit. This before the show had even premiered. And that was when Lauren showed us the pilot. First time I saw it, she put it up on the screen. And I was like, oh my gosh, this looks so much better than I expected it to. And the voices are great, and the timing is great. The timing is a big thing, and they nailed it. And then at the same meeting, she played Winter Wrap Up. And that was when I got chills, and I was like, oh my god, this is really good. It's a whole different level of what I was expecting. I was expecting My Little Pony that everybody thinks of, from the 80s. But that's just the quality of the show. That has nothing to do with this fan base. Well, I guess it does, but you know what I mean. So then, when I started to hear about this, I didn't really get it. I thought it was just kind of an ironic thing. But then I remember the first time I really understood the impact was at Equestria LA, 2012. I was in the autograph hall. I spent a lot of time in the autograph hall not signing autographs because Lauren was there and Tara Strong was there. But everybody who wanted their autographs had to go past me. So I ended up having a lot of conversations with people. And time again, people would come up and say, you know, I was in a really bad place. I was suicidal. I was having problems with my parents. There was abusive relationships. Whatever it is, I had no friends. I felt alone until I found the show. And I think part of the beauty of the show is that it aired on the Hub, which nobody gets. So everybody watched it online. And when you watch it online, you're automatically connecting to other people in chats or whatever. And it was just one person after another. Like, I had no friends at home, and now here's my friends right here with me in line. And that was when I was like, oh my gosh, this is for real. This isn't just a joke. This is like actually impacting people's lives. And then I see it at every con I go to now. Last night I was like struggling to not cry when this girl's telling me her story about problems with her parents. Then she found the show, and now she's like happy, and it's unbelievable. It was life-changing for me. Because I've never expected to come to something like this. I call it celebrity fantasy camp. I get to pretend I'm famous when I come here, and it's really fun. I like it. But again, I get to hear those stories of like, I wrote an episode, whatever the episode might be, you know, that somebody watched and said, this one really impacted me, and I get to see something that I worked on, as opposed to just writing it and taking the check and moving on to the next one, actually impacted somebody. It's incredible. It's incredible because, you know, you kind of harden as you get older, and it's just a job and this and that, and it's completely made me feel a lot of things I wasn't expecting to. And I love coming to these conventions because everybody's on the same plane. Everybody's totally accepted. There's none of the nonsense you find out there in the real world. And it's just heartwarming in every way. I just love it.
You can see that this cartoon show has had a profound impact on many people. One person in particular has a deeply moving story of how My Little Pony impacted their life. Barry and Brony was involved in the ongoing war in the Middle East, and his exposure to My Little Pony helped him get through an incredibly difficult time in his life.
2010, I was deployed to Afghanistan with the 1st of the 501st, and we were in an area, southeastern Afghanistan. We were 15 clicks away from the Pakistan border. They said hello to us a lot. I mean, rockets, mortars, small arms fire, just anything they could. IEDs, absolutely everywhere. Mines. It was a crapshoot from day one. We got to the point where we were under attack so often that it just became normal. It was every day. We just, like, the latrine explodes one day, and the most thing that we're angry about is the fact that those were porcelain toilets that we had, which are rare, and we were very angry that we'd lost half of our toilets. Not the fact that half the building had just been evaporated, and it was that bad. Well, there was one situation near the end of 2010, they decided that was a very good time to attack, and a situation occurred with the destruction of a mosque, and it was not our fault. It wasn't our fault that this mosque was destroyed, but we were blamed for it. And they attacked our fire base, and we had defenses, but they weren't robust enough to push away the attacking force, and they were able to get into our inner wall, and then we were actually having to fight just door to door. Here's the thing, we had this like small area, we had the outer wall, and then we had a lot of open space, you know, vehicles and stuff and other things. Then we had this like inner fortress, I guess you call it a fortress. It was essentially made out of mud and I-beams, and we called it the Alamo. Wonderful name, great name. It had 4 guard towers and with machine guns on them, and that was it. That was the only defenses it had. We didn't think they would get past the outer wall. Well, they did. About 19 insurgents made it into the Alamo. And there was fighting going on outside the Alamo too. But I never went out. I was never able to get out to help them. I was always inside. And we had, the Alamo was like a square, and it had little like it had a building in the middle and had little like hallways that went around it to different portions of it, where different doors were, different people lived. It's where we ate, the mess hall, and all kinds of stuff like that. And we were fighting door to door, absolutely door to door. And I mean, we were having guys peeking out of doors, firing and coming back into the door, just to keep from getting the return fire and, you know, bullets packing through the mud and the wood and stuff. And it's something like you would expect to just see on a movie screen, but we were there, we were living it, and it was the worst experience ever. And people didn't just, and moving on from that, we were doing this, it was hours. We were doing this for hours. There were twice, I remember, where people were just running out of ammo. And we weren't hitting anything, we were just shooting at them. It's not like you can aim. I mean, we were better equipped if we had had shotguns. They got so close. And we didn't have shotguns. There were a couple of times where I resorted to an officer's M9 Beretta to try and conserve my 7.62. I always give. He had gotten wounded, and he was not able to move. He was okay, but he was not able to move, and I utilized his 9mm effectively. But I think the really big thing was when we were able to actually get out of the room after a couple of hours, and I don't know, there was a guy up above on an upper level, and he jumped me. And he came down with a sharpened piece of metal. And it wasn't even a knife. I mean, I would more describe this thing as just being like a piece of scaffolding that had been sharpened to a point. And that's what it was. And he jumped me, and it came down right on my plate. So I was wearing my armor, and it came down right on my plate and hit. And it can't go through. There's no, like, that stops a bullet. I mean, a person's not going to be able to go through that very easily. But it came back up immediately because he knew there was armor there, and he was going for the weak spot I had. Because we have this thing right here, but there's weak spots on your face. And it was my understanding that this guy was experienced. He had done this before. And I was not about to have that, so the only thing I could think of at the moment was just to get him closer so he didn't have the room to go at my face and grab him and just pull him in. I'm wearing a helmet, and so headbutting me is gonna hurt. And when he went back, that gave me the time to draw my own knife and go at it. And that violent story just continued for many hours, nearly 31 hours of just all of that. And by the end of the scenario, we didn't actually lose anybody, which was amazing. We didn't lose. There were guys that were messed up, but none of them died. But we at just the end of it, we were scrambling. Well, not scrambling. We were shuffling into the mess hall, and dead-eyed people, soul-drained, dead-eyed people, and we didn't have anything like left in us. We're sitting down. Most of us are bloody. We're all dirty and filthy and just dead. And the mess hall is also what we call the MWR, which is it's kind of like the lounge, the hangouts, where we eat, it's where we get to be people again. And there's a big projector screen, and some person just like somebody just put something to watch, and some idiot puts in My Little Pony. G1, the episode where they go and save the ponies from Tarek. Like the original My Little Pony episode. And we're all just like, just let it play. We just didn't even want to fight it. We were done. We just let it watch, and we just watched it. We're just like, okay. And by the end of it, we felt better. We felt like a little better. Just like, that was cool. That was a happy ending. And we had a happy ending, believe it or not, and we were feeling better. And by the end of the story, we are back in the United States, and I told a friend about, we watched My Little Pony, and he was just like, I got something to show you, and he ended up showing me. This was later on, showed me a video where Rainbow Dash fights against Starscream. And that death battle where Rainbow Dash takes on Starscream, and I've been a Transformers fan for many, many years, and I'm like, oh, what is this? What is this My Little Pony fighting against Starscream? And I watch it to the end, and I'm like, I might need to watch this show and see what's going on. And my friend who was a really big fan of it at the time, he's like, you need to watch the show. You will love the show. And the fans are awesome. And I'm like, I don't know how I could take this. And I ended up watching it. And I watched season 1 and 2 in its entirety in like a weekend. And it was done. And when I found out about the Brony community, I'm like, I have got to be a part of this. I have got to be into this because I love it. Well, I didn't get to be a part of it because we ended up getting deployed again 2 months later. And that's the thing when you are a part of a special tactics and operation infantry unit, you deploy all the time. You don't get that year-long break. A lot of soldiers do. You go all the time. And I mean, I deployed with the 501st on the first deployment. I ended up deploying with we were attached to the 377th on the second deployment. My unit, my guys, you know, we were 5th group. We got attached to other units, and we did specialty work when we were there. But we didn't have our whole unit deployed. We always had parts of our unit that deployed attached to other units. And when we got and we ended up going back to the same fire base of the first deployment. We were in the same place. I had my old room. I had the same room. They'd fixed the ceiling because a rocket had knocked the ceiling down, but I had the same room. And it's like I never left. It was great. It was awesome. But the hilarious thing is we had these comm guys, right? And they had been the same guys that had gotten G1 My Little Pony on Force earlier, because when you have the comm guys, I mean, they like to goof around a lot. They like to get what they can. And they were able to, you know, usually you only get like the Armed Forces Network and like a movie channel, maybe, if you're lucky. Well, they got this obscure, bizarre channel that no one had ever heard of before called The Hub. And I don't know how they did it. I don't question them. I don't tap into the pirating sorcerer's ways of a 25 series. But they were at The Hub, and I'm just like, what is this? And he's like, it's got Transformers on it. I'm like, oh yeah, Transformers. What comes after Transformers? My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. What? I've been told that's a good show. I know I watched it, man, and it's a good show. And it's like, no, it's My Little Pony, man. Hey, manly. Anybody can beat me in a poker game, and I was notorious for poker abilities. Anybody can beat me in a poker game, we'll watch it. But if I win another poker game, we all gotta watch one episode, the whole damn platoon. And we had this 3-day long poker tournament. Ended up getting beat at the last group. Like the whole tournament, and it's just me and one other guy and 2 other people, and I went all in, and he beat me with a full house. And I'm just like, all right, y'all are done. We don't have to do anything. And apparently my dedication to the cause was so great that they ended up going ahead and watching the show while we were eating. And I think 3 months later, the biggest argument on the fire base was who was best pony. It was an entire platoon of bronies 3 months in. It was a really great deployment. It got extremely violent near the end of it, but we watched My Little Pony. We got one guy went back home and torrented everything up to the most recent episode, brought it back because we lost the channel after about 4 months because I think they caught on to us and we didn't want to get in trouble. And he torrented the whole show and brought it back, and we watched it just constantly, all the time, watching movies, watching TV shows, and watching My Little Pony. I'm still in contact with a lot of those guys. They go to conventions. They're a lot of the military bronies you see now. And they're not any really big like names, such as like any of the 5 Equestria guys, but I run into them all the time, and I don't see any here. But if I go to BronyCon, I'll run into 4 of them guaranteed. And but yeah, and after that, it just cycled in. And when I finished my service in the military in 2013, 2 months after ETSing, I was at my first Brony convention, BronyCon, and it's just been that way all since. It's what I do. I suffer from severe PTSD, and it has actually caused a lot of issues in my marriage. But I would honestly say that the show has gotten me out of the darkest periods of my time, especially away from suicide. I drowned myself in alcohol for years, and just I didn't want to deal with anything, and alcohol was my way out. And I mean, like, we're talking about half to 3/4 of a bottle of rum a day after watching the show and after getting into it. And it's not just watching the show and being like, oh, it's for little girls. It's watching the show and really seeing the message that the show has. And applying that to my life has been very, very beneficial, because it has made a significant contrast between the base negative side, which is very dark, and it is a place that, I mean, flashbacks still happen. And they are very difficult to deal with, and my wife sometimes doesn't know how to break me out of them, and they become very, very detrimental in my life. But at the same time, I come here, hang out with these people, I get to be myself. Like, there's no walls, there's no judgment of who I am and what I do and how I've done it, and it's just I get to be myself, and there's no walls that I have to put up, and I get to be the person that I want to be for a couple of days. It has shown me that things can be better. Being around bronies, being around the people who I love, and friends that I only ever get to see once a year, and watching a show where it shows you that things can have a bright future, a bright aspect. Because the trend these days is stuff ends sad, stuff ends kooky, campy, and just, I don't like it when the show actually has ideals and morals and things that I really do appreciate. And that's what gets me. It's like you come to these things and you see the real face. And these are people who honestly want to change the world just by being a better person.
Obviously, the show's done a lot of good for the people that have watched it. The messages are wholesome, uplifting, and positive. You may wonder about how these messages themselves get into the show. With so many quality lessons on friendship, you may think that the show is written around these lessons. Quite the opposite, in fact. They're developed in an almost organic way, emerging from the adventures and obstacles that the main characters find themselves in and overcome.
They always come from, there's a couple of exceptions, but almost exclusively come from the story. So we'll have a premise, it's Cutie Mark Chronicles. The premise is a sentence. This is where we backstory the main six getting their cutie marks, but there's no lesson attached to that. We'll go into the room, we'll break the story down, and as you're breaking it down, you're like, oh, you know what would be a nice lesson to Celestia at the end of this is that if you're feeling alone, you look up at the sun, or I can't remember what it is. You look up at the sun, we're all looking at the same sun. Maybe your best friend is now who you haven't met yet. That's a really cool, cheesy, but good, warm moral. Then it just comes out of breaking down the story and realizing, like, oh, this is built into the story. That's cool. And that's why in Super Speedy Cider Squeezy at the end, Applejack's Dear Princess Celestia, I didn't learn anything. There is no moral because we didn't think of one. We just thought it was a fun episode. It was a great episode, song, great characters, but we got to the end of the story and we're like, this is really good, but there's no moral. So I put a backdoor moral in where it says, I didn't learn anything. My friends will help me when I need them to, but I already knew that. So there's still a little like
reinforcement.
Yeah, there's still a bit like I can rely on my friends. There's still a moral, but it's hidden behind. Right. I didn't learn anything.
Now that we've heard how the morals find their way into the episodes, let's see what lessons some people have taken from the show in particular to help make their lives a little brighter.
The lesson that Applejack learned in season 1 when she thought that she could do she thought that she could buck the entirety of all the trees by herself. She thought she could do something really hard by herself, but she really did need help in order to get it done.
A lot of the messages are based on Aesop fables that are their basic. They are the original guidebooks of conscience for children, and they can apply to anybody. When you try and approach things with honesty, with good intent, then sometimes you get into trouble with it. It's a fact of life. You can get into any situation with people, and it will never turn out the way that you expect. But if you let people know that sometimes conflict is okay, and that it leads to people having a better understanding of the world around them, then ultimately you're succeeding in a really good lesson. One of my favorites, a couple of my favorites, is Babseed episode where you try to express to children that it's okay to reach out to people that you trust if you think that someone is actually doing something to you that someone is actually acting against you and you don't know what to do. It's okay to reach out to people. It's okay to reach out to somebody and say, I don't know how to deal with this person, and I want to try and make it better. And if you don't do that, then you're leaving yourself being alone. You'll make decisions that probably aren't the best one. Another one that I particularly liked is really any of them that deal with being honest with your friends and dealing with jealousy and honesty. Sonic Rainboom's a particularly good one because it dealt with a lot of different issues from Rainbow Dash's point of view. One of them being Rainbow Dash's self-esteem is very, very fragile. It's the first time that you really see that on the outside she's very strong and very. She's very. There's a word I'm looking for here. She's on the outside she's very strong, and on the inside she's very delicate. And when someone else is coming in and is stealing the limelight and it's really affecting her. And you have to look at it from the perspective that there's no really good answer to that question. Like, what do I do? This person is really standing me up and is taking my show. There's no way to answer that question easily. There's no easy way to say, well, this is the right thing to do where everybody's happy, because not everybody's going to be happy in that particular case. You're going to have an awkward conversation. But if you're honest and you approach it from the perspective that the other person is a friend, then ultimately you get to a place where I think everybody can be okay with it. And understanding your friends' needs and your friends' desires and the things that make them special, make them feel good about themselves, ultimately leads to a good place for everybody.
Every single lesson in the show needs to be applied. These are the same lessons we teach children when they're younger, which people seem to forget in their teenage years. I mean, I don't know too many people who say please and thank you anywhere you go. If you go to a shopping center, it's gimme, gimme, gimme. People are not very friendly. They don't do this stuff. Everyone needs to be reminded of these lessons we learned in childhood and reapply them to everyday life. And this show really does that.
I just think that it's built into the show itself, not even the lessons. The idea of viewing the world through, pinkie pie colored glasses and don't let the horribleness out there get in here. You know what I mean?
These are some of the very powerful messages in the show. It's clear to see how they have inspired tremendous change in many people's lives. This show has created a fandom that seems to dedicate itself to the values of harmony, integrity, compassion, altruism, and exuberant joy, to the extent that its impacts are felt not only amongst the Bronies themselves, but by everyone they come into contact with. I asked each of the individuals I spoke with to name one aspect of the show that they think sets it apart from all the rest, the one thing that makes it so very special. Here's what they had to say.
To answer your question, what makes it so special for me is that it makes everybody feel it makes them feel like they are contributing. It doesn't matter what you do, whether you draw, whether you sing, whether you write, whether you just go to conventions and hang out with people. Everybody can feel like they're doing something and that what they're doing is positive. And it gets reinforced by the other people around them that say, we like you for who you are. We want you to be here, and we want you to feel like you're making a difference. And I think that's the best feeling that you could ever give somebody.
Relatability. No matter what character it is, you're going to relate to at least one character. It might not be the main six, but odds are it will be one of the main six. And really, that's the main appeal of the show. Aside from great writing, great animation, but you might not be a fan of animation in general. But at the same time, something in the show is going to catch your eye and make you admit to yourself, okay, this is actually pretty good.
Honestly, I don't know. There's just some strange spark in My Little Pony, which just seems to bring out the best in people. It's a show that is, I would say, built in innocence and built in pure optimism, which I want to say greatly contrasts the cynicism I see all over TV and in the media. It doesn't focus on the negative aspects. It focuses on what can be and what should be with relationships with people. It's a great show. These cute little characters, I know somebody who acts like each one of these, and I could put their face whenever I see it. If I see Applejack bucking trees, I know friends who work non-stop at their store, and they're really fun people, and you just, for some reason, they don't want help. I gotta help them anyway, because they will overwork themselves. I know people who are super shy, but they are the kindest people I've ever met. People who are super creative and give things out so much to help everyone else. People who are extremely hyper friendly. They bring together all these awesome people that I have known and I have met, and it seems to fit the world that everyone lives in. I'd say it's because it has such relatable characters that makes it such a great show. And I don't know, without it, it'd feel like the world would be a little grayer and a little less positive, which again is why I love the show so much.
The show in general is that it's just a nice place where everybody's friendly to each other for the most part. There's obviously evil monsters and stuff like that, but people are different and they accept each other, and it's cool, and everybody's kind of on the same level, and it's just, that's what I loved about the show from the beginning. It was so heartwarming and sweet and sincere, and then you go outside and it's a horrible place. So I guess it's just that it's make sure you keep that innocence and happiness and sincerity in your heart.
There are a lot of children's shows out nowadays that have dark themes. I don't know if I'd consider it a children's show, but I've watched like Adventure Time and Gravity Falls and other shows, and there are a lot of times where it's a good show, it's fun to watch, but it doesn't have it's just there to be entertaining. It's just there to be like, here you go, watch this, have fun, sort of, kind of. I went there with like SpongeBob. I watched SpongeBob and I laughed at it, but I never really was like, this is wholesome. It wasn't. It's not wholesome in the way. It was a goofy show, and that's all it ever was. Ed, Edd and Eddy. That was a show I grew up on. It wasn't really wholesome. In fact, the main characters were con artists. And you watch My Little Pony. Every single episode has a moral. It has a lesson. It has a truth. That's the thing. It has a truth to learn. And one of the biggest messages of the show is that not only can you improve yourself, but you can be better for other people. And if you're better for other people, you can be better for yourself. And if you're better to other people, you're a better person, not than other people, you're a better person for other people, they're better for you. I mean, if we can do this, and this keeps spreading, we can make a better world. All it takes is one person saying, I'm sick of people being crappy to each other. And I want things to be better, not just for myself, but I want things to be better for other people. And you get that message here.
Clearly, there's something to this Brony movement. If you want to have a piece of the joy and harmony they feel, all you need to do is watch this show. Enjoy its wonderful stories, dynamic characters, inspired musical numbers, and meaningful personal lessons on how each and every one of us can become a better friend to the rest of the world.